any more people coming in. So I'd like to just start the meeting now on time. And I wanted to say that we're honored to have Christian Alvarado. He's the lead, he's currently an organizer with something called Detroit Action, but Detroit Action has a student, uh, Michigan Student Action component to it. So, excuse me, Christian has been the lead organizer with the student component for Detroit Action. And they're a social justice group that probably Christian could tell you more better than I can. But they work on a wide range of issues. And at this point, though, they also have a special emphasis on immigration. I did get just a little bit more on your background, Christian, just to share with the group, and then you can tell us more about yourself and the presentation. But Christian was a student organizer, and he's served as a community organizer. Tell me if I got this wrong. With Oakland Forward since March of 2022. And then he was an organizer with Detroit Action since April of 2024. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Your educational background, you spent 5 years working in education, specifically with special needs children.
Yeah.
So maybe that's kind of where some of the issue of having, we got Dr. Paul wants to come in, and so I'll admit him. And you are active also with the Young Democrats of Michigan.
I was previously, no longer.
Okay. And you've organized events, various events over the years. So that's a little bit of an intro to Christian. And so let's all give a little short welcome to Christian, and then we'll hear what he's got to say. This is my attempt to say amen, I guess.
I love it. I love it. Well, hello, everybody. I hope we are all having a nice, easy Saturday morning. I know I woke up earlier today. I was excited about this, but I was also like, I've been working hard this week. I kind of want to just ease into my days. So, I had my breakfast, had my coffee, and now we're all ready. We're right here. So I'm really excited to be here. I'm actually really excited that the Gray Panthers invited me. I had, just spoken in a class, and one of your younger members said that they would like to have me here, and that's what connected us. And I'm always excited to be in a room full of faces that I don't really know, because then I get to expand the message, and that's what this is all about, right? So like Randy said, I work for Detroit Action, their campus affiliate, Michigan Student Action, and I have since April of 2024. But my history in activism goes back further. So in 2016, I was graduating high school. And at that point, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life.
This meeting is being recorded.
Yeah. At that point, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And, I went into college, and I was told by my dad, just get a business degree. It's the easiest degree to get. Is anybody else hearing the echo? Is it just me?
Yeah. We got Dave, your name came in a second time, so we can delete that. That might help us.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, so I went to college, and I started getting a business degree, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do. To be honest with you guys, I've always been a gigantic WWE fan. Like, pro wrestling has been my jam my entire
Dave,
life.
could you unmute? Could you mute yourself? I guess I could do that. Let's see if that helps. Okay, thank you.
Okay. but yeah, so I was a very big professional wrestling fan, and I wanted to get involved in that, but like I didn't have any ins. And then all of a sudden, my freshman year of college, it happens. Trump gets elected. And up until that point, I kind of thought it was a joke. Everybody in my friend group thought it was a joke. Even after he got the nomination, we thought it was a joke. Um, and when he got elected, I immediately went back and thought about when he came down that escalator and said that Mexicans were rapists and murderers. I'm Mexican. At that point, I was a 17-year-old young Mexican man. He was pointing the finger directly at me, and I felt that. So I started wondering, how do I get involved? What do I do? And then soon afterwards, I started knocking doors for groups in Ann Arbor, and I started helping campaigning in Detroit. And then the next year in 2018, during that big midterm year, I helped in my area. I live in Plymouth, but I also helped in, the Plymouth, Northville, Canton area, Wayne, Westland. I helped manage campaigns. I just volunteered. I ran for precinct delegate myself. And it was really cool. That was the first ever election I could ever vote in. I got to vote for myself. So that was a really cool thing. But yeah, soon after that, I started to, gain a little bit of momentum, and I started to sit on boards, whether that be local boards like the Northville Democrats or the statewide board of the Young Democrats in Michigan. And I was really proud of the Young Democrats, the group I came in with, because we were by far the most left-wing group in all of the Democratic Party of Michigan. When everybody else didn't want to say anything during the 2020 election, I, being the electoral director, endorsed Bernie Sanders for president for the young people, because that's what the young people wanted. I even pushed back. They invited me, the Biden campaign invited me to speak on a panel that they were having during the general election. And I made sure to tell them that if you want the young people's vote, you have to accept that most of us didn't vote for you, don't want you to be president, and you're going to have to come to us with a lot of concessions. And to be fair, the Biden administration did do that. The Biden administration did come to the table and negotiate with the progressive wing of the party. Now, we didn't actually go through with it, but for the time being, it was good that we actually had some communication across the board. So, I did that for a while. I became the vice chair of the Young Democrats in Michigan. All while I'm doing this, I'm going to school and I'm working full time as a paraprofessional in Ypsilanti Middle School. Why Ypsilanti is because that's where my family has been teaching and being a principal there for a while. My dad has been a principal at different Ypsi schools since I was in high school. And he was like, hey, you want a job that's not, like making pizzas or making burgers? Come do this. And I loved it. I spent 5 years in the classroom, and I will never, ever give those years back. The feeling that you can get when you see a special needs child come in day one of the school year and they can't really read a small book or nothing, and by the end of the year you get them on chapter books, there's no feeling like that. I'm guessing maybe if I ever become a parent, like I'll feel that way with my kids, but if I never do, like that's where I got that feeling. And I was so proud to see how all these kids grew. And the district offered to send me to U of M to get my teaching credentials. And I would come back after I was done with my education at U of M, and I would have a 5-year guarantee contract with Ypsi schools. And I weighed those options. What the options I was weighing is going into the full-time classroom and, being a teacher, maybe taking up a social studies classroom and really pressing in hard the history of the working people of the United States and that kind of stuff, or fully get involved in progressive politics and make change from the legislative level. And after a lot of thinking and a lot of talking with family, and that's what I chose. I chose to fully embark on this journey of getting fully involved in politics. So, I already had all these contacts through all my activism work that I was doing. So I used some of them, got a job with Oakland Forward. That is an organization that's in Pontiac. They organize all of Oakland County, but a lot of the work is done in Pontiac, is based out of there. Um, we got to do something really cool in 2022 when we were having those midterms. We got to push through a bus millage that got through all of Oakland County. At that time, before 2022's election, buses really only went to the black and brown neighborhoods. The white people did not want the buses in their neighborhoods. So we forced it. And now the buses go through all of Oakland County, and we're really proud of that. But soon after that, I parted ways with Oakland Forward and came to Detroit Action. The Detroit Action has been around since 2016. They've kind of been around just as long as I have, just been doing different things. They started off as Good Jobs Now, working with the SEIU, making sure people in Detroit were, treated well, very union strong type of organization. But they kind of realized that if you're giving out resources like that, you're always going to be giving out resources. So they switched from that kind of an organization to a power building organization, which is what they are now and what I still believe we are to this day. So they moved to a power building organization, and they saw that if they were going to get their message out on a statewide level, they need to expand outside of Detroit, because they're already doing well with Detroit. They won right to council in the city. They're still fighting for it to be fully funded, but right to council is a huge win for a city like Detroit. And they got that. But they knew if they wanted to expand, they had to expand where all good movements start, and that is with young people on campuses. So they hired me. I had a history with Washtenaw. Like I said, I taught in Ypsi schools. I love Washtenaw County, and I just kind of hit the ground running. In 2024, a lot of the work was just to talk about, let's get people again, let's get them to vote, and make sure that they're signing pledge to vote cards and registering people, the basic stuff. But all while I was doing that, I was spreading seeds throughout, and I was starting to talk to people who would later become my core team that I have now. And that's what I did all of 24. And then after Trump won re-election, I remember calling my colleague, Jen, who is in charge of the Michigan Student Action chapter in Oakland-Macomb County. We have 3 chapters, Oakland, Macomb, Washtenaw, and Wayne County. I remember calling her, and I was like, our plan of holding Democrats accountable, we got to throw that away, because at this point, they don't control nothing. We have to do harm reduction. And that's exactly what we did last year. We spent many months organizing and base building around harm reduction. We held many events just talking about what are your rights? How do you go protest? How do you form protest? How do you do all this safely and legally? We wanted to make sure that everybody had every single resource available so that they knew how to do everything that they needed to do in a safe, legal way. And then, we continue to base build. We continue to go out. We started doing chapter meetings every other Thursday, starting last year in April, and we've just been doing it ever since. We've been able to put on multiple events, some more serious than others. We've held more serious events like union talks, where we invite unions from EMU to come talk about the importance of unionization. And then we've also done things like movie nights. Just come over to one of our members' houses and let's have pizza and watch a movie. On top of being a very good, healthy group, Michigan Student Action Washtenaw is, we have also been able to create a friendship group. And at the end of the day, what is this all for if we can't be friends at the end of this, So that's kind of what we have done and what we have built, and we have so much to do this year, guys. So and I don't have to tell you guys, you know how much we have to do this year, and it's only it's almost the end of February, almost the beginning of March, but still we have a trek to go on. And MSA is no different. Right now, we're preparing for putting on our own statewide convention on March 7th, where we're inviting young people from across the state to join us at Wayne State to talk about what our values we share and what legislation we want to see passed in the state. And then we're going to come together, make a youth agenda that same day, and then we're going to take that youth agenda the Wednesday afterwards, the March 11th, and we're going to go up to Lansing and we're going to lobby the government and we're going to tell them exactly what we made and exactly what we stand for and what we want. And that's just that's how we do things. We do a lot of everything. We go up and lobby the government. We get involved in electoral politics. But we also are very involved on EMU and U of M's campus. We are also very involved in anti-data center work. And of course, what I'm here for today, we are very involved in combating ICE. So that's a little bit of an introduction of who I am. The teacher in me wants to call on some people, and I want some participation. So here is my question, because I want to gauge the room and see where we're at right now. How are we feeling with what is going on? What is our gut reactions to how this year has started and where we are at with this whole ICE situation? Can I get like 2 people to come off mute and say their feelings?
I would say outrage.
Yeah, definitely. Anybody else?
Busy.
Yeah, it's been a busy time. It can feel like there is so much going on all at once, and that's really on purpose. They want to flood the zone so that we can only hold on to like a little bit of information, but they can continue doing all this other bullshit. So we have to kind of focus in on what we need to focus in on, and today we're focusing in on ICE. One of the things that MSA likes to talk about is the world as it is and the world as it should be. So I'm going to start this off by talking a little bit about the world as it is and make sure that we're all grounded in the situation that we're in right now. If you just do a little Google search, as of February 7th of this year, if you just look up how many people are in ICE detention and have been in ICE detention, we are looking at 68,289 people. That's a lot of people. That is a lot of people. And, when they were talking about, mass deportations now, and we're just going to go after, the worst of the worst and just the violent, rapists and murderers and all that stuff. Well, if you look at the entire population of undocumented people who are here, you're really only looking at about 1% of that entire population being any type of criminal. So what does that mean to have mass deportations of undocumented people who are the worst of the worst if only like 1% of them are that level? It means you're going to have to go after a lot of people who are regular old people. They are your neighbors. They are your friends, your coworkers. They are your kids' friends at school. They are going after literally anybody, and it shows. According to tracereports.org, 73% of everybody who has been arrested and put into custody by ICE do not have criminal records. Really think about that. We have put, out of the 68,289, 73% of that, and somebody can do the math for me, I can't do it off the top of my head, that's a shit ton of people that are put in ICE detention camps. Honestly, they're concentration camps. And it's a horrible way to live. It's a horrible way to be alive. We've gotten reports from people who have gone out or who have called into lawyers and saying that they are getting maybe one meal a day and the meal has bugs in it. They're given one water bottle a day, and when they're done drinking that, it's done. You ain't getting a refill. They are sharing one bathroom. Kids and parents are separated. The smell is horrendous because they aren't allowing these people to take showers. And in some cases, they keep the lights on for days to have sleep deprivation. This is torture through and through. No matter how you want to put it, this is a torturous regime. If we're just looking at Michigan, according to Bridge, Michigan, 3,338 people have been in custody up until this year by ICE. And most of them are being housed in Baldwin. When we heard about that Baldwin opening, my group and I almost went over there to protest it. We didn't get a chance to, but I feel like that moment is coming back again because, as you've probably seen on the news, ICE is ramping up in Michigan. They are not taking us lightly at all. So what is going on is ICE has built, they have bought an administrative building in Southfield. The people of Southfield do not want them there. It's very clear the people of Southfield do not want them there. I know the people of Southfield. When I organized in Oakland County, those people do not want that there. But what may be even worse than an administrative building of ICE being in Southfield, they are taking a warehouse in Romulus that is not meant to house people. It's not. You know, you look at these gigantic warehouses, whether it be like an Amazon warehouse or whatever it be, those aren't meant for people to live in for long periods of time. So that's what they're putting these people in. That means Romulus is getting its own concentration camp. And they chose Romulus on purpose because they want to be very close to the airport. The reason they want to be close to the airport is because they want to take you, after they kidnap a person, they want to take him to the detention camp, and then quickly, as fast as possible, get them on a plane to a state that does not care about human rights, like Texas or Louisiana. If they keep you in Michigan, there's a chance a lawyer will get in touch with them and start a case, and then your rights are actually activated. But if they get you to Texas or Louisiana fast enough, you no longer have rights. So that is really where we're at with that. And then Randy mentioned something very important earlier before we got started, and that was the SAVE Act. And a lot of people, rightfully so, think that the SAVE Act is definitely going to be affecting women and trans people because those are the people who have changed their names. And, many people don't have passports. I mean, I think I saw a figure that said 50% of Americans don't have passports. How many people still have their birth certificate? Right off the bat, they know where that is. I don't know where mine is. Those things to get other copies of or to get a passport, that costs a lot of money. So this is essentially a poll tax. Now, it passed the House. It could pass the Senate. It may not. Like, we honestly don't know if it will pass the Senate or not. Well, let's hope not, But what we have been told by the president is that if it doesn't get passed, he will use executive power to put a version of this into place for this year's midterms. So what does that have to do with ICE and what we're doing here today? Well, one of the things that I'm already getting my students prepared for is Election Day. Because if Trump puts in something like his own version of the SAVE Act that he just executively puts through, how are they going to enforce it? They're going to enforce it by sending ICE agents to polling locations to check people's IDs and papers before they even walk into the building. So what we're trying to think about is when we get to that time, we at MSA want to have enough people volunteering with us so that we can safely escort people into the voting booths. These are things that I don't think any of us thought we ever wanted to do, but these are things that we are now having to do and having to prepare for. But that is the world that we live in. And it's tough. It's harsh. It's scary every single day. I'm a young Mexican man. I look Mexican. I don't really have an accent, or I don't really speak the language either, but it doesn't matter. When they were in Minnesota, they were going into the suburbs, not just the city. They were going into the suburbs, knocking on random doors, and if a black or brown person opened the door, they would just take them, no matter what their citizenship status was. Because the reason they're doing this is they are incentivized to take people and to increase the number of arrests per day. They actually get financial incentives to kidnap more people. So that's what we got to deal with. Now, we don't have to live this way forever. This does not have to be the end of our story. Like I said, Michigan Student Action talks about the world as it is, but we also want to talk about the world as it should be. So let's think about some of the long-term things that we need to fight for, and then we can talk a little bit about how we get there. So first thing I want to do is I want to ask again, I want to get a little participation. What is our long-term goal here? In your mind, what is the long-term goal with the ICE situation, with immigration? Where do you want to see us go after this whole debacle of the Trump administration is over? You think we can get like 2 or 3 people to volunteer and speak a little bit? Dave, go ahead, man.
I'm concerned about whether or not we even have a midterm election. It's that serious where we're going. But in the long term, I want a society where people can feel comfortable. All of us can feel comfortable, and we're going the opposite way. I think every one of us. I'm blessed to have a close family that none of us we don't have at our Christmas table, at a Thanksgiving table. We're all of the same mind, but we don't have that. Most people don't have that. I have a brother in California that thinks that I'm the devil, because I was a union member and because I'm a lefty. So I mean, the reality is that if he was here, we wouldn't be having dinner together. And why can't we go back to a time? I'm being a little personal here. My father drew Social Security. He died at 65 on disability, but he was not a citizen and was an illegal alien. There aren't too many of us as old as me here at the meeting, but my dad took they called it a nickel citizenship. He took the nickel ferry from Windsor to Detroit in 1930, something like that, and never went back. And our family settled in Ontario, and he would never go over to visit, and we never could understand. He would always have some excuse. I can't go. I can't go. He never went to visit. It wasn't his family. It was my mom's family, but he never would go to Windsor. We never knew until he died that he wasn't. He was an illegal alien. He was one of them, and he was a citizen. In those days, it didn't matter. We're all immigrants. I mean, all except the indigenous people, and to pretend differently is bull. So I look for a world where we can respect everybody and appreciate it. I don't love everybody. I can't say that, but I want to respect everybody. I'm
Absolutely. That is a big thing. I think we need to go back to a time where the immigration issue was a paperwork issue, because that is what this is. This is like, if we're being so honest with ourselves, and many people, especially on the right, don't know this, but crossing an invisible line in the sand is a misdemeanor in this country. It's a fine. It is not worth jail time. It is not worth being executed in the street for. And we need to go back to a time where we just treat it like such. And that is why people like myself and other progressives are saying that we need to abolish ICE. Would anybody else like to, speak up a little bit about how they are feeling like what is the world that we want to get to. Anybody else want to join in?
I see Paul.
Um, I hope that someday we'll have a world where everyone has enough food to eat, where everyone has health care insurance and can get health care, and people don't fear for their lives or violence, and that we welcome the immigrants and anybody that the other. That's the big problem is we're othering. Everybody's getting othered if they're not part of our group, our tribe. That's the basis of racism, of xenophobia, of this disrespect and anger against immigrants. We all need, in other words, we all need to respect each other as full human beings.
Absolutely. And you know, one of the big things that the elite want us to do is to fight over these culture war issues and not realize that the material conditions of our time, we share all these same similarities with people throughout the working class. We don't have anything in common with the billionaires. We have a lot in common with the rest of the working class. We have more in common with the homeless person than we do with Jeff Bezos, believe it or not. And we can get to that world, Paul. Like that is why I believe in, you know, moving us away from capitalism. I think a better world is possible without capitalism. So we're always moving towards that and towards different goals. Does one more person want to come out and say what they're hopeful for in the future, long term? Randy, you want to go close us out?
One of the things that I've been grieving and angry about was this attempt to de-incentivize people who want to stand up for diversity, equity, and inclusion, the DEI kind of things. Those are core values like diversity, respecting people who are from different racial or ethnic backgrounds, equity, meaning that people can have equal opportunities to succeed in their goals, and inclusion is allowing people who have who would like to be able to be part of our political and economic structure to have an opportunity to be included. So my vision or my hope is that we can erase some of the or retrench on that opposition to DEI, because it's sort of like a summary. And I think I'll just say Danny, who is our young person for this group, said that she wanted to specialize in her career in working on to promote DEI. So she has a vision too. And so I'm just sad that she can't be here, but that's I'm just saying that's a vision that I share.
100%, 100%. I love that. Thank you all for sharing. It's big. Let's talk a little bit about what we kind of want to see. And this is coming from the eyes of, you know, the Michigan Student Action ideals. There's three main things that I think we really want to be talking about in the long term. First things first, we need to release everybody who has been kidnapped. We need to let people go back to their homes. Most of these people here are doing it the right way. They are here for under asylum laws. Now, we need to do a lot better with our asylum laws and get more judges into these spots so that we can move these processes along. But these people who are here under asylum cases, they're allowed to be here. These people who are going to court to, you know, make sure that their citizenship continues to move forward, they're allowed to be here. We need to allow them to go back to their homes. And honestly, we need to be talking about, along with the Black and Indigenous groups in this country, we need to be talking about reparations for people who have been through these things. Another thing that we have to do, and this is something that I remember, I'm not that old, but I remember when we used to talk about, and the Democrats used to talk about a pathway to citizenship. Where did that go? You know, now the Democrats try and run as far to the right and be even harder on immigration than the Republicans. And I always tell Democrat friends, like, listen, you're never going to beat the Republicans at their own game. They're always going to be more vicious and evil than you. And so you might as well reframe the narrative and share different values than the Republicans. We can say that we value the immigrant being here because they are our neighbor. They are our teachers. They are everything to us, and they're not dangerous. And like I said earlier, this crime of going across an imaginary line is a misdemeanor. It is paperwork issues. It is not worth kidnapping people and putting them in concentration camps for. And the last thing that is very, very important for multiple reasons is we need to hold the people who did this accountable. Kristi Noem, Stephen Miller, Donald Trump, and all of these ICE agents who committed crimes must be brought to justice. And I don't care if that is locally, statewide, if that's in federal court, or if that's in international court. I don't care at this point, because we as a people just in the United States need to have that cathartic moment of putting these people in jail and saying collectively, we will never do this again. The Germans had to do that. We're going to have to do that. And then if you're just looking at this from an international perspective, we have shown ourselves in a horrible light these past 10 years. And the international community is not going to just accept us back just because we elected Democrat in 28. We elected a Democrat in 2020. What did that get us? You know, the international community is not going to trust us anymore. And the fastest way to get them back into trust with the United States is to prove that we hold our evil people accountable and we put them in jail. So that is some of the biggest things. Now, how do we get to these ways? Because obviously we're not putting Kristi Noem in jail tomorrow. You know, obviously, like the people aren't getting released tomorrow. We have a long way to go. So how do we get there? I have a couple things that we do. MSA is already kind of on this as much as we can be. We try and prepare the public as much as we can. We started with EMU and passing out whistles at EMU. And in the first 2 weeks, we gave out 200 whistles to students on EMU's campus. Last week, we went out and knocked door to door in Ypsilanti, and we were able to talk to hit over 200 doors, talk to around 50 some people, and gave out that many whistles as well. So that is one of our biggest things. Whenever we table, we always pass out whistles. So we're always there. And then, of course, we have a working group that is just about combating ICE. My leader for that is actually going to a training today to bring even more information back to our group so that we can be even more prepared and have even more ways to help our community. So that is what MSA does. What can y'all do at this point? Well, one of the easiest things that anybody can do, call your lawmakers. You know, Alyssa Slotkin needs to hear from you. Gary Peters needs to hear from you. Your state legislators need to hear that you want the state to protect the citizens from ICE when they start to swarm here. You know, we have to put pressure on them to not just give up on fighting against this Romulus concentration camp. We have to make sure that the governor is held accountable. For as much as everybody loved Big Gretch a couple of years ago, it's been a little rough recently. And not all of it's her fault, but she has a role to play in holding the federal government accountable and not allowing ICE to just run rampant in our state. Another thing that everybody can do is boycott. The specific group companies that I'm going to list here are all complicit in aiding and abetting the ICE agents in what they do. They allow them to just take people off of their parking lots. That includes Home Depot, Target, Amazon, Whole Foods, and Hilton Hotels. All of them have allowed this to happen. And we as people in a capitalist country We don't have much power, but one of the things that we do have is the power of our wallet. And we can say what we want with where we spend our dollars. So that is one thing. You can choose not to buy anything from Home Depot, Target, Amazon, Whole Foods, and don't stay at a Hilton hotel. Another thing that you can do, again, going back to where our money goes is where our power goes, find a group to donate to. There are many, many groups throughout the state and throughout the country who are doing very good work. If this is your issue, there's many groups. I know of one Michigan for Immigrant Rights in Detroit. They do great work. They always need more funding. They always need help. But there's many, many others that are doing a lot of great work throughout the country just to combat ICE. And if you have other issues that you very much so care about, keep that in mind. Find yourself a group that you can send money to, that you feel comfortable with, you feel proud to send them money. And the last thing that I'm going to mention that we all do, I think everybody knows this one. It's the easiest point of being in democracy. Go vote. This year, we have a chance to stop the bleeding. And I believe Dave said, like, we're not sure if we're going to have a midterm elections. I'm with you, Dave. I don't know if we're going to have midterm elections. And if we do, I don't know how fair and free they're going to be. But all we can do is control what we can control. So that means we have to make sure that we are still going to vote. We are still encouraging people to vote. We are escorting our at-risk neighbors to the voting booths. And I do think that this year, if you can vote in person, I would say vote in person this time. And this is coming from somebody, myself, who loves to vote via mail, because I don't always know all the judges and I like to do my research and sit down with the ballot. But listen, this year, one of the things that could happen is a red mirage, where if Democrats kind of do a lot of voting by mail and they count the day of voting first, the Republicans are going to get off to a little lead. And then Trump and the rest of them are going to be like, stop the count, send ICE in to collect all the ballots. The Democrats are stealing the election. They're going to do anything they can. So if the way we can combat that is if we all vote on election day this year, we got to just show them, be undeniable that we are up the entire night. All right. If we want this to be a blue tsunami, we need to show it from the second the first poll closes till all the way at like 3-4 a.m. when they're finally closing the rest of the polls. So that is my spiel of what we should do. That is really what I have for you guys. I know that's a lot of information in there, but I'm happy to answer any questions that I can. I see the first hand up is Kat. What's up?
Hi, Kathleen McNellis. Thank you so much, Christian. I really appreciate hearing the ideas, hearing your own personal journey, and also recognizing your relative views as it relates to the rest of us here on this call this morning, and how important that youth is, because you are part of our future. We're not going to be here that much longer. You will be. You will be. That being said, I am very concerned about our democracy. More than anything else is our democracy and the loss of it. With that being said, there is also the issues, as you have alluded to, with immigration and ICE. I am indeed a resident of the city of Southfield. We were out there with our state senator, our state representative, as well as our congresswoman. And we were part of the press conference earlier this week. I do, however, want to ask you specifically questions as it relates to how you want to motivate the people within your group for voting and what you think you can do. You talked about perhaps escorting people to the polls. I work as an election inspector at the polls. So I'm one of those people that sits there and looks people up to see whether or not the addresses and everything match, give them their ballot, help them to vote. We could use lots and lots and lots of young, savvy people, particularly computer savvy people, working our polls with us. I'm not talking about necessarily as election challengers or anything like that. I am talking boots on the ground. We could really, really use that. Washtenaw could use it. Wayne County desperately could use it. Here in Oakland County, we can use it. Livingston can use it. Anywhere in this, I don't know, the 5 different counties that are in our area. I can't overemphasize that to you. I know that your concerns about ICE showing up at the polls are our concerns. We have extra concerns as it relates to the our clerk engagement here in our specific community right now and how that goes. I know that we have people, election inspectors, that literally go out and hand out our on voting day. At the end of the day, we hand out the election applications to people up until the time it closes at 8 o'clock to make sure that there's a cutoff time. We're still working that, and we're working that within our cities, and that may indeed be on the scope. But boy, I tell you, I can't encourage you more to help us out at those polls. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for being out there and helping protest ICE showing up in Southfield and taking a building there. I agree with you 100%. Everybody needs to take a part of democracy. I tell everybody as much as I can, democracy is not a noun, it is a verb. You have to actually be a part of democracy in order to keep it healthy. And as we have seen, there was many decades that I think no one gave a shit, and now here we are. So it's time to pay attention. And I 100% agree with you. And that is something that I do encourage my students to do. When we get closer to election time, Detroit Action comes together and we work polls throughout the state. And in different ways. Some people just sit in the parking lot and make sure that everything went okay. Some people are challengers. And some people we encourage to do what you're saying and actually be a part of the working and checking people in and all that stuff. So all that will be done through Detroit Action this year, just like it has been every election since 2016. And I'm hopeful for that. I'm hopeful that I can get more of my students to get involved in some way, shape, or form. I will say this year's election is a lot easier for us to get involved with because there are things on the ballot that excite young people. Abdul Al-Sayed is exciting to young people. We want our own Mamdani in this state, and Abdul is that person. That being said, that makes the governor race hard for young people to want to get involved with, especially because Jocelyn Benson will make a lot of money off of these data centers that are going to give people cancer and give young people asthma. And the Republicans are probably going to be anti-data center, which is going to make it tough for a lot of young people to want to vote for Jocelyn Benson in the race. So, keep that in mind. There's a lot to still happen this year. We got a lot to do. But yeah. Paul, go ahead, man.
Thank you. And thank you for coming to our meeting. And as you see, a lot of us are pretty gray haired here. But and my question is a lot similar to Kathleen's, in that how do we get more young people involved? Many of us, when I go out at a No King's Day rally, for example, it's mainly older people. Now we're, of course, retired and maybe we have the time to get out there more than younger people. But, and a lot of people have asked me, oh, Paul, why do you bother to go out on the street, that won't change anything. But I tell them, well, to the contrary, it's probably the only thing that actually changes people. We've seen that Trump has backed off in terms of ICE. He's backed off in some areas only after people have gone out on the street and demonstrated against what ICE is doing and standing up for our values. And speaking of that, of course, we want looking ahead to the next No King's Day is April 20.
I think it's March 28th.
March 28th, and many of us in the faith community are also supporting something called the Palm Sunday Path, which is the next day, which is celebrating our values that I think are common to most faith communities, which I mentioned about feeding the hungry and healing the sick and welcoming the stranger. Those are things in our scripture, and I think we've let a certain faction of the religious community get away with distorting our values, twisting them around, just like what Randy said about DEI. Well, if you're against DEI, that's very thinly veiled racism. But again, how do we get more people out? And a lot of young people I've heard haven't voted because they think, oh, it's not going to change anything. But motivation is the key thing, I guess.
Yeah.
But
Let's talk about that, because that is a big thing. We got to get young people involved, and that's a big part of what I do. I get young people involved. One of the reasons why you may not see a ton come out of these No Kings protests is because there's a difference between mobilizing and organizing. Anybody can mobilize, anybody can get 100 people to a spot. Anybody can, get all these people to downtown Ann Arbor to wave signs and chant chants. It's another thing to gather people in a room and talk about values and talk about how do we build from here. You got to organize. And I don't see a lot of groups actually doing a ton of organizing at these things. It seems to be more of just a cathartic movement, which is good. I mean, people need to get their feelings out, and protests do work. They do work. If you look at what happened in Minnesota, the real reason why they're leaving Minnesota is because the public did not let up. And I will say, if they ever come to Michigan and do the same shit here, we better not let up. We better be able to ride for our people. When it comes to getting more young people to vote, I think it's really important that, first off, we understand that voting is the easiest and most simple way of getting involved in democracy. That's something that anybody can do every 2 to 4 years if they want. It's very easy. We want to be encouraging people to take more than just that step. We want them to want to go out and organize. What does that mean to organize? That means knowing your neighbors. That means knowing everybody who works with you and being on common ground, building solidarity. That is one of the biggest things. Join a union. Like, that kind of stuff is so important in order to, build that solidarity, and young people will feel it. And we need to be very authentic. I am 100% myself all the time. I like to swear. I wear a hat every single day. I like to wear hoodies. I don't dress up even when I go lobby. Like, I am who I am. I have built the power I've built, being the person who I am, and young people like that. Another thing that young people do like, that it does kind of bash with the older crew, is young people are leftists. Young people are socialists. And I know older people have been bombarded with Cold War propaganda on what socialism and communism is. It's really not what you've been told. And that's not really what we want anyway. We're not looking for a Stalinist government. We're looking for healthcare. We're looking to have a house. We're looking to have education that's free. And that's what we call socialism in America right now. And at this point, as you saw with the New York mayor's race, that's where we're going. And hopefully through organizing and going to the Michigan Democratic Party convention in April, I can help keep pushing the Michigan Democratic Party left. Anybody else have any questions?
We have maybe time for one more question from somebody who hasn't asked one yet. And I did want to also call out in a positive way a new person. Our newest member of Gray Panthers is Ben Washburn, and just joined us not too long ago, but he's an activist as well in the Detroit area. So welcome, Ben. I guess we have another board meeting. We have a board meeting coming up after this where we want to have a discussion about what are we working for? What do we want to take? What action do we want to take as a result of your presentation, Christian? So let's open it up for one more question here so that we can move forward with the action.
I was going to ask a question. I was making a comment, kind of following up on what Paul was saying. My J.D. Vance was just on television talking about how the Pope's got it wrong. The Gospels preach obedience to government and work, and he forgets about the most fundamental thing. What is it all about? It's about taking care of the least of us. What's the most famous stories in the Bible? And I forgot the name of it. But the story of the Good Samaritan is, to me, the essence of the Bible. And he never mentioned that. He mentioned about following the rules of government. And the Pope took an opposite direction. I'm not a good Christian. I'm a Christian. I try to be a Christian, but at the same time, the hate that's in that White House, and they all claim to be Christian. I'm ashamed to call myself a Christian when you hear them talk. Sorry.
No, I get it, man. There's no hate like Christian love, man. And sometimes it can be rough. I have an aunt who fell into Christian nationalism recently, and it's become unbearable for the family. But I will say, I mean, like, the true believers, if you really know scripture, like, I went to Catholic school from K through 8, so like I grew up in the church. I went to church all the time, and when you teach a young child to care about other people and to share and to love others, and you just put that in their head since they were a little bitty boy, they grow up to be this. And for some reason, the leaders in the evangelical churches don't like that. And, you know, there's a reason if you go to these evangelical churches, they worship Jesus, but they never really quote him. They kind of just go into the Old Testament where God is this crazy, evil creature. You know, they don't want to talk about Jesus, the Palestinian socialist brown guy who loved everybody and was technically like a terrorist according to Rome. You know, he was put to death by his government for being anti-authority. We should all take those lessons. You know, I haven't really been to church in a long time. I don't really follow any faith at this point, but I can still take all of those messages and all of those proverbs that especially Jesus taught, and then you can also take stuff from the Quran and what Muhammad talked about. You know, there's plenty of different religions and belief systems across the world where you can take many, many good things about loving your neighbor. And, you know, that's really what it's all about. It's these people that use this to hate other people, they honestly have more problems with themselves than they do with others. And we kind of got to show them that. And it sucks that we got to put up a mirror to them and be like, this is what you're doing. But at this point, this is kind of what we got to do.
Okay, I'm going to say it's a kind of program that we could talk for a lot longer than an hour. But I want to thank you very much, Christian Alvarado, for being our speaker this month, and for all of you for joining us on this call, because the way we treat each other and the way the policies of our government that should fall in line with our highest values, not the lowest ones, are at stake here. And so I'm very honored and pleased that you all joined us. So this is my attempt to saying thank you to Christian.
Well, thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it. This was a great time.